Just, how was your day?
I feel together today.
Oh, I like that answer.
I had great dreams last night, and my day is phenomenal.
Okay,
It's
great.
one of those days where you're like, I'm sorry. Is everything
Aligning?
glowing?
Oh, hi. You're listening to Service from Hell, a podcast featuring people that are currently in customer service positions or the lucky few that got out and all of the good, bad, and infinitely irritating things that go along with that work. I'm actor and writer Kate Gaffney, and I'm uniquely qualified to discuss this as I used to work at a very busy and very popular comedy club in Los Angeles, and at least one of you listening right now has probably grabbed me and told me you were ready to order when I was running around like a crazy person. So let's eat. I'd like to welcome our guest, spiritual coach and channeler Natalie Gianelli. Originally from Prescott, Arizona. I said that right. I'm very impressive. Natalie now resides in sunny Southern California. Natalie is a formerly competitive Palms performer, facts, and globetrotting hard rocker. What is most true about Natalie is that she has, quote, a deep compassion for people and their experiences on planet Earth for everything they feel. Their fears, their overwhelm, their kindness, joy, and love, end quote. Isn't that nice? She actually said that. I better know Natalie from the Hard Rock Cafe, and then from her being one of the most ardent early supporters of my ridiculous improv career. It was short, y'all. She came to far too many terrible shows. I mean, literally, like, cafes in the middle of East LA at 2 p.m. Like, she was really ride or die when it came to supporting the arts. And she would be that way for you too. Be her friend. She's great. That said, Natalie, tell us, how is talking to a dead guy for work? How often do you have to defend what you do for a living? Tell us.
Talking to a dead guy for work. It's amazing. It's an incredible thing. How often do I defend what I do? These days, because I've been doing it for 21 years or something like this. So these days, defending it doesn't happen as much as me being like, so I channel a dead guy and he gives advice on your life. Is everybody still good? Are we still here? Are we all still present? As opposed to being like, oh no, I do that, because when you do something for long enough and then you're like, take it or leave it, folks. This is the weird path that spirit has got me on, and it just freaking is what it is. So how is it doing it? It's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. It is weird work in the world when you could be like, oh, well, I work for Bank of America. And everyone's like, thanks so much. Did you try the canapes? But, so when I tell people, it is a bit odd. What's amazing about it is that when I think about this is what I do in the world for a living, I think, I'm sorry, what? This is what I'm doing? And also, I sometimes think about when I'm really old and then people are asking me, like, I'm on a rocking chair, obviously a front porch
No
swing.
question.
Yes. Clearly, I'm living in the South somewhere with a sweet tea, which I've suddenly gotten a taste for. And they're like, so tell me what you did. And then this is the freaking story I tell them. I say, oh, well, I was a trance channeler for a dead guy and just altered my consciousness and brought him in, and he spoke in a different accent, in a different cadence, and gave advice on people's lives and taught them how to follow their hearts and not make decisions out of fear. What do the fucking kids do at that point? Do they run for the hills?
No, it gets real quiet.
Do they scoot a little closer and be like, that's the weirdest thing.
Tell me more.
Tell me more, Miss G. Tell me more. Or it's just my 84 cats or something. But but what is great about it is that I have been doing this long enough that now certain universal principles are just fact to me. So I don't, like, when you hear people say everything's working for your good, I do not question that at all. I know that to be true. And so it's incredibly peaceful, some of the universal truths that come through, and learning how to, one of my joys, my eagerness these days is teaching people how to trust their hearts, listen to their hearts, and make decisions from their yes instead of from their no, from the fearful mind. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've got, by channeling Dr. Peebles, the teacher that I channel, he's got all these different techniques, tools, things to do that. And so for years and years and years, having been in that energy, hearing the truths, this is how you trust yourself. This is how you listen to your heart. Everything is working for your good. There is only one energy. You can call it whatever you want. Things are neutral. That you make. I mean, all of these that are truths. I know them. They're ingrained, and so I get to live in a way that feels very empowering, but it feels very connected. I feel like I live a life that I feel very connected to the all that is, and that even when I have moments where I'm like, the fuck, like, that I can shift pretty quickly and be like, the fuck is working out for my good right now? What is actually happening? And so I can pivot pretty quickly.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a really annoying question.
Yeah.
So, and then we're going to go back to the question I should have asked, which was, tell me about your job, which I didn't start with, but we'll get there probably in the next section. I'm doing a great job as a host.
You're doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Appreciate you. How do you then, based on what you've just said, how do you respond when someone says, well, children starve and die?
Yeah. First of all, wouldn't it be?
This is a comedy
funny thing to laugh at, but it would be great. It would be great if everyone in the world if they were like, so what do you do for a living? I own a convenience store so what do you do? Because children are starving and dying every day. Like if everyone got that answer, that question,
it would be the best.
That would be the best. What do you do? I'm a trash collector. I love my job. How do you feel though about children starving and dying every day?
I'm okay with it. I don't know. Help.
Yes. I did not expect that question.
Eject.
Yeah.
I mean more from the idea of
you get it. I love freaking First of all, can you imagine actually someone coming to your table being like, hi, I'm Melinda. I'll be your servant today. Melinda, real quick question. Also, thanks for working today. It's been great already having you. What do you feel about children starving and dying all over the world right now? She's like, oh, for God's sake.
If I get asked this one more time, I swear to God.
You're like the seventh table. Perfect. It's catching on. Let's get people thinking.
And I put you on the spot because I have heard a version of this be dipped in like, because I've gotten to see some of the sessions. And so I've heard a version of, with you, like the fact that you're saying, everything is happening for the highest good. And that is a belief, having to defend that position, I guess.
Yeah.
In the context of, kids shows.
It's a great question. And it is a little dicey for the human mind because what happens is that we are conditioned from a very, very early age about what things are good and what things are bad. And this is a right thing and that's a wrong thing. So eating all of your dinner before having dessert, that's a good thing. Spilling your milk while you're trying to carry it to the table is a bad thing. Killing a person is a very bad thing. Killing 10 people is really bad. Killing 10,000 people, oh, that's really, really bad. And if you get someone a gift, that's really nice. And if you wrap it really nicely, oh, that's really nice. And if you get them another gift or send them a thank you card, oh, you've done a really good job. So what happens is that we're conditioned that there are variations of good and bad. So if we pause there and then we think, okay, to the natural world, there is no good and bad. So if you think about how, like the natural world isn't like motherfucking lions. Like they are such assholes.
That needs to be a t-shirt. Motherfucking lions.
Like always going after the gazelle, like never not going after a gazelle, just chilling, sleeping, eating, basking, and then gazelle hunting. Like, do they ever think about anything other than, so like, yeah, there's nothing, there's no like, they're like, oh, the ants, but the fucking anteater, damn it. There's nothing in nature where we think about it as good and bad, but nature itself doesn't say this is good, this is bad. Mm-hmm. Even the parasitic plant that takes over the other plant is like, you're mine now, bitch. Like,
what is
I'm
this?
not only going to own you, I've moved into your house, I'm getting into your cells, I'm now going to become you. Parasitic plants are wild, right? They take it over. So we as humans can look at that and be like, it's a bitch of a plant. Like it just decided
that plant
sucks. Just was like, But this is what nature does. Nature figures it out, and there's no right and wrong. There's no good and bad in nature. We can call it good and bad. We can call it right and wrong, but that is a conditioned response we were taught as children. Because what I believe, what I know, so arrogant, what I believe, what I know, the truth of what I believe is that we teach our children these good and bad things because this is the game we play. So when you have a kid, you're like, okay, so glad to have you. You're really tiny. Let me just make sure you know the rules of the game so no one punches you in the face or runs you over or thinks you're a bad person and you can't live an awesome life, which is what my job to do is. So we perpetuate these beliefs that this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, etc. So if we start there, which is a really long way to start there, but then, when you're asking yourself, what about the children starving and dying? The same question, which is when I believe everyone creates their own reality. A lot of times when people think, well, again, it's the age-old question we've been asking ourselves forever, what happens to children who are starving and dying? How would they have created that? So here's where it gets really tricky for the mind, which is that do you believe in victimhood or not? And do you want to believe in victimhood or not? Do you want to live a life where there are victims and perpetrators of that trauma? Do you want to live in that world? Because if you do, then you will see it everywhere you go. And if you don't, if you say, okay, everyone's choosing on a soul level somehow for their experience in life, then you'll see the mystery, you'll see the magic, you'll see the miracle in every freaking moment. And it is full body chills, amazing. So the children who are starving and dying, there's, how do I want to say this? It's such a cool question because I've still to this day, I've been doing this for so long, but still to this day, I'm like, they're going to fucking come to my house with pitchforks and like just burning shit down because it's just not a popular thing. But sometimes what happens when something happens that is not pleasant, not happy to watch, is that then things are shifted and changed around that incident or that person because of the experience. So, for instance, everyone's got their own story of getting rear-ended or a relationship that goes, south or whatever in a small way. And then you talk to them 6 days later, 6 weeks later, 6 years later, and they say, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Like, my whole life is shifted and changed. So the children that are starving and dying, it has the potential to increase compassion on the planet. So, when we start to learn about different places where there are genocides or a lot of hunger and things like that, suddenly now first world problems begin to get much less. And we think, oh shit, children are starving and dying. What do I want to do about it? How can I help? How can I be of assistance? So it begins to raise awareness. And there's a full consciousness of all of us. So as we start to become aware of these things where suffering happens, then we can lift ourselves out of our own little menial problems and go into service. How can I be of greater service? How can I assist? So sometimes it'll raise the consciousness. So I believe that souls will come to the planet to have this amazing bodily experience. Sometimes, all times, but to varying degrees of what we would define as intensity, to experience the physical sensations and also to lift the consciousness of the planet. Because I don't believe that even in the places where children are starving, dying, even when it's more familiar, when it happens a lot, it's still heart-wrenching. And so I have to believe that even in those places, people are still like, how do we stop this from happening? Mm-hmm. How do we stop this suffering? And so I believe that some souls come to the planet with a sort of a higher charge, a higher order of business. That's not really the right way I want to say it, but they'll choose what we consider a harder path to be like, you know what? I'm gonna come down and mix things up. I'm gonna make it really clear that like there gets to be more compassion, there gets to be more love, there gets to be more presence on the planet, and that it's our job as people who have the luxury of not starving
Come on.
and of having time to sit and meditate, having time to think about, oh, would I rather go give this money to the starving children who are dying, or do I want to buy more pinwheels to put on my car? What? First of all, pinwheel cars need to be a thing. Done
immediately.
But, so we have the luxury. I mean, think about, here in LA, obviously, everywhere, so often people are like, oh, I just can't seem to like sit down and meditate for, 15, 20 minutes. It's too hard. But we have the luxury to do that. We have the privilege of sitting and binge watching magicians on Netflix, or whatever.
Because we're not in survival mode. Sure.
Yeah. And we're not in survival mode. Mm-hmm. And so we get to be more aware of what's happening on the planet, be more conscious. And I think that without some of what we would call the atrocities happening, then some of that awareness wouldn't happen. People might go completely unconscious. People are like, oh, everything is great. The thing is this, though, and here is what no one wants to hear, but it's so true. We come for the experience. We come for it all. So we come for the sweetness and the sour, the ups and the downs. You come to get your face licked and stub your toe. And you come for it all. So either lace up and get ready or wait this lifetime out, or whatever. Because the planet Earth is rad. It's a rad place. But there are ants and anteaters.
Wow, that's such a good metaphor. Sure. And it's that idea of stepping out of ego to be of service, which is hard to do. We can talk about it. I can talk about it all day, how much it bothers me that children are suffering and dying, as a small example of one of the things that I would like to see change. Mm-hmm. Am I actively doing anything about it ever on a daily basis? Absolutely not. I'm too busy in my own ego, edging God out and just saying, no, I can't. I'm so busy.
Yep.
And that's the work. So would you say that the purpose of being on the planet is just create more compassion?
So the one thing I wanted to say about what you just mentioned is that one of the ways that we can help, because there's a collective consciousness, one of the ways that we can help and support is to ask. So when you see something, when you see the kids suffering and dying and starving, and ask yourself, okay, where am I, because it's collective, where am I not getting enough? Where am I not feeding myself enough? Mm-hmm. Where am I not asking for enough support? Where am I feeling underfed? Where am I suffering? Where can I nurture my own inner child? Where can I take care of myself? So whatever it is that we're seeing in the external that triggers us, it is 100% means that now it is in us. So it's something that gets to be healed, something that gets to be looked at, because as we heal ourselves, I don't even like that. Like as we understand the fucking magnificence that we are, then that translates to the collective. So suddenly people stop creating experiences of suffering and torment and things like that when they know who they are, when they're out of victimhood. So your other small question was, why are we here? Was that it?
This comedy podcast is crushing it.
Is everyone laughing now?
Ha ha. Ha ha. See, I have smart friends, y'all. It's really, it's my friend's fault. And I just, needed to get him on the podcast. What did I say?
The purpose of why we're here.
Yeah. So is it just, is that what it is? Thank you for remembering the question I could not remember.
No, it's a beautiful question. Again, it might be unpopular. I believe that the purpose that we're here is to just freaking experience the experiences.
That's it, full stop.
I think we're here to play. And sometimes we consider play as being like merry-go-round pinwheel cars, and sometimes we consider play as being the suffering. And that's a really unpopular this comedy podcast. That's a really unpopular thing too, because if you talk about shadow stuff, sometimes, I mean, the depth and the awesomeness of the ego is like, I like strawberries on ice cream and that's my favorite. I also really like to feel shameful and really horrible sometimes because that's what feels familiar. And like, I get to work through that. That's the fucked up thing about the ego, is that the ego is the soul is here to experience it all. The ego is like, perfect. We got it all for you. No problem. Because who knows what it's like to not have a body, but I'm sure it's a lot of like floating around in bliss and being like, are we all good? We're all still good. Amazing. It's Tuesday, but we're all still great. Like no one's got any problems. So I honest to God think we're here for the experience of it, to play, to experience it all, to take it in and experience it all. The step up from that is that you get to have compassion. You get to show and receive love. You get to recognize that everyone's on their own path, and so how are they reflecting who you are, and you reflecting who they are, and that's a rad way to be in life. Is to I mean, I forget who says it. I think it's can we just
make it up?
We just quote everything to
Yeah.
Ram Dass, or
Yeah,
like
sure.
just like I'm pretty sure it's just
Feels
Ram
right.
Dass.
No one's looking it
or
up.
Abraham Lincoln, whatever. But
Or your neighbor Teresa.
Yeah, that like I'm pretty sure it was Ram Dass that says, "Look at everyone as if they are God dressed in drag." And
I love that.
Yeah, like, and even Mother Teresa was, someone asked her, like, how do you do this? Like, how do you continue to feed and clothe people when you're exhausted and things like this? And she says, I'm feeding the Christ.
Ooh.
Like every time I'm clothing the Christ, I'm feeding the Christ. I'm like, it's
Wow.
always the Christ I'm feeding in this person. So like, we get to do that. You get to live your life however the hell you want to live it. But you get to do that because that's generally more pleasing than just trying to avoid the next construction, figure out why this happened to you. Like, you get to choose.
Were you the one that told me the quote? I love this quote, and I'm going to mess it up. Or that story of there was a Buddhist monk walking down the street with a journalist. Stop me if, well, I'm going to tell it because the podcast doesn't hurt it. Buddhist monk walking down the street with a journalist, and the journalist was interviewing him. And then this poor person was like, please, money, whatever. I think this was in the States. This is the face of recognition. Okay. And the monk doesn't give him any money. And the journalist is like, what are you doing? And the monk says, oh, I would never, what is it? I would never interrupt the path that he's chosen, or something like that. Or did I mess that up? Is that essentially what it was?
You're right. This is a story that came from one of my dearest friends who we know, Sarah Sherman.
Oh, bless her.
So Sarah Sherman was hosting some sort of like monk or guru or, some teacher, and they're walking down the street in Santa Monica, and the unhoused person asks, the monk, like, for money, and he says no, and Sarah says, what are you doing? She said, and the monk says, well, I would never interrupt his life choices. And that's a full take a knee, like that's a full genuflect, like, okay, like
That mic has been dropped.
yeah, because like you hear all the stories of the guru, the teachers, like saying something, and then the person that goes away for 16 years and then comes back and is like, I got it. Oh my god, like that's one of the things.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'd be like, all right, so see you in 16.
Bye.
Because I don't quite understand that yet. Because like, are we all part of the path? I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I want to go back. So your work, I dove in too quickly, but I'm just, you're so open and it's so easy to talk to you. What is it that what do you do?
So I'm a spiritual coach and a teacher. And what we talked about a little bit of what the slightly more off the interesting path that I do is I'm also a trance channel, which means that I teach people basically about how to choose from their hearts and not from their fearful mind, how to follow the yes. And one of the ways that I teach is by doing trance channeling, which I learned to do many years ago. Trance channeling is where I voluntarily alter my consciousness, and then I step out, not out really, I expand my own experience of myself and invite in the teacher that I channel, Dr. James Martin Peoples, who was a guy who lived from the 1900s. And then he speaks through me. So when that happens, my eyes are closed most of the time. You're hearing his voice, his cadence through me, his vernacular, and I'm sort of witnessing from a branch somewhere else.
You're a bird in a tree.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one of the ways that I teach. And then I also do classes in conscious channeling. Because if the trance channeling is too weird, I can just relay the messages.
With my eyes open, staring at you aggressively.
Exactly. Right. There's definitely still a lot of eye contact. Yes.
Are you uncomfortable yet?
Yes.
You're about to be.
Let's get real.
All right.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah. I wanted just sort of a general, because I just dove right in and was like, let's get real surfacey with quoting. What was it? Ram Dass and whatever.
Yes. All the gurus.
All the gurus.
Right. So... Mother Teresa, what's your take?
Oh, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. Okay.
Yes, please.
So, is there anything that you wish, and this should probably be in a different section, but I don't care because I'm the boss, bitch.
Do it.
Is there anything that you wish people knew about your current work? And we're going to get into it. She works a ton of customer service. Also, what she does now is customer service, in my opinion. But is there anything that you wish is information people had apart from the universal sort of truths that you've already mentioned, but something you wish people knew about your work either before coming to see you or just like about people that do the type of work that you do? Is there just like a misconception or something that you wished people knew?
You don't need me.
Podcast is over.
You don't.
Bye. That was such a good... Bye, everybody.
Anyway,
what?
You don't need me. You don't need...
Why?
You don't need anyone who says, I've got the answer for you. And I don't say that. But so what I would like for people to know is that you are whole already. You are already complete. And that if you go to see anyone who does spiritual coaching, mentorship, coaching at all, investment advice, whatever, like the truth of the
Your
matter
accountant.
is... Right, your accountant. The truth of the matter is you have all of that information within you already, even if you don't know that you do. Everything that ever has been known, is known, or will be known, you know. It's collective. So what we're not taught is how to access it or how to do that easily. So what's helpful when someone might have a session with me or go see a coach or see an accountant, whatever, is that you're like, okay, like I don't know how to access this, or I'd like help accessing it. So we're all walking each other home. So like, can we support each other? So, but to come to the sessions, any time you go to see anyone that's like, oh, you need me, first of all, kick it out, kick that person out, because anyone saying you need me, absolutely not. But that people can assist you. The work I do can assist and support who you are, but who you are is an emanation of God and a story. So come along on the journey if you're like, hey, let's do it together. Like, I'd like some feedback. I'd like some back and forth. But to come to anything that you might do in that realm, come knowing you are whole and complete. You're not a half knitted sweater, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. Podcast is over, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to help us, just kidding. All right. That was just the apps. Calm down, everybody. It was really long. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. Hope you enjoyed your apps, lovely listeners that I'm coming for. We're going to go on to the entrees after a quick break. Oh, hey there, folks. That's the end of part 1 of 2 with my dear friend, spiritual coach and channeler, Natalie Gianelli. You can find her on all things, but it's easier to go through her website, which is just nataliegianelli.com, NATALIEGIANELLI.com. There you can book a session with her and find out more and, discover more about the universe, because I think we solved it in part 1. That's why we've divided it into 2 parts, because we had to solve everything in part 1 and then complain in part 2. So don't worry. She gets into all of the standard questions and everything else that is fun next week, and feel free to join us for that. If you have questions, you can reach out to us here directly at Service from Hell by sending us an email to servicefromhellpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also, we're finding out more and more how much those ratings and subscriptions and all that crap matters. So if you are on Apple or have an Apple device or use Apple Podcasts, if you could just give us a rating and then 1 or 2 sentences about why I'm so awesome or why the podcast is great or whatever the hell else. You could write about dogs. Who cares? But if you could just write a couple sentences there, it would be really helpful for us, for people to find us. Thank you so much to our new listeners. We love you. We appreciate you. We see y'all. And join us again next week for the remainder of the interview with Natalie Gianelli. We will see you then. Thanks, folks. Good night.